Morning, everybody. Happy day 45 of the apocalypse, or a happy World Book Day if you're a parent and having the last minute dash for a costume. Welcome to the News Agenda with me, Fleet Street Fox. And today I'm joined by my fellow Mirror columnist and associate editor, Kevin Maguire. Morning, Kev.
Good morning. I'm really relieved my kids are now grown up, so I don't have to worry about those book day costumes anymore.
Yeah, look, I got several months in advance, and I'm actually for a Jane Austen outfit. Right. And I managed to just about get there without spending any money on it by adapting various bits and bobs. We still had crises this morning before she went out the door, that her shoes weren't right or something. Oh, God, what kind of shoes does Jane Austen wear? Anybody know? Answers on a postcard. So anyway, this is the People's Paper Review. So get into the comments, ask us your questions. We'll do our best to answer them for you. Those of you listening on podcast will just have to flip the V's, whatever direction you think Rush is in. So what have we got for you today? Well, the Mirror has splashed on thanks from Prince William to NHS workers on the 5th anniversary of the COVID outbreak. 5 years. More on that in the paper. But first, I want to take us to pages 10 and 11, where the geopolitics of the day are still in an absolute mess. Donald Trump was heckled and had people thrown out of his first joint address to Congress. And today, European leaders are holding yet another emergency summit to try to sort out what to do, having decided not very much last time. Now, Kevin, yesterday it was PMQs, and Starmer had to tread this very fine line, didn't he, between all this stuff that's in total freefall. Was he successful, and did he give us any information about what's going on?
I don't think we got much information, but he is, as you say, he's trying to be careful. He's trying to stay on a tightrope because he doesn't want to lose Trump completely. And it's as if the US has switch sides. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are Vladimir Putin's useful idiots in the White House. We are choking off arms supplies, withdrawing intelligence sharing, humiliating Zelensky, calling him a dictator, blaming Ukraine for starting the war, wanting to pillage the country by getting its minerals on the cheap. It's all incredible. It's all intended to bully Zelensky and Ukraine into surrender. But Starmer, while realizing Europe has to be more coherent, Brexiteers, are you listening? Also doesn't want to shut out the states completely, because there will be some people in the administration, perhaps the National Security Advisor, certainly the chiefs of staff, the military brass hats, who will realize that betraying Ukraine is a betrayal of US interests. But it's how do you somehow try and coax, cajole, flatter Trump back into being sensible instead of stupid?
Yeah, answers on a postcard. If anyone has any clues, how do we get Trump to sort of start playing the ball with everyone else? And how do you think Keir Starmer's handling this, everybody? Do you think he's doing it well? As far as most of the Conservative MPs are concerned, they think he hasn't put a foot wrong. Some of the Labour Party would perhaps find something to disagree with in that. Now, at the moment, I think it's fair to say that Keir's sort of being the sort of calm centre of the storm. Well, that's how he's coming across, doing a reasonably good job of it. Now there's a suggestion that he and other leaders like Volodymyr Zelensky from Ukraine and Emmanuel Macron from France will be heading back to Washington again this week, having been last week and ending all really badly. They're going to go back again to try to talk to the tango tyrant into being reasonable. Now, that's going to be an absolute pantomime, Kev, if it happens, isn't it? Because all of them are just going to be forced to kiss the ring.
Yeah.
Be dancing bears for the president, and then sign up to whatever he wants. Just give in, because he's now. You go back to him, he's in a position of strength. He's not going to suddenly issue some American security guarantees. What's he going to give them in return?
Yeah, it's demeaning in many ways, but they're dealing with a man toddler. And anyone who's had kids when they've been misbehaving knows you can shout, or you can sometimes just try and cajole them, and you take a deep breath and you talk to them, try and meet them halfway. And that's what they're trying to do here. There's no point going if they're going to be ambushed the way Zelensky was last Friday. Like, it's not even a week. Feels like a lifetime since that awful mugging in the White House, which looked prearranged. It looked scripted. They were always going to do that. Why you dressed the way you are? Why aren't you saying thank you more? You would normally say, if you've been bullied at school and the bully's taking your dinner money, try and avoid the bully. But the problem Zelensky has is the bully's giving him his dinner money. You're supplying those missiles and all those other weapons that are required. So it's a really tricky position. I think Starr is probably playing it well. I get worried that, for instance, slashing the international aid budget by $6 billion, I think is a big disaster, because that was a forward defence. It was soft power. It was making unstable countries more stable. I think there'll be a blowback on that. I'm not quite sure what we will get for the extra $6 billion that will be spent on defence, when the Ministry of Defence is incredibly inefficient and profligate. Equipment so often doesn't do what it's supposed to do, comes really, really late. So just giving them a load of extra cash, I'm not sure what you will really buy. Britain's the 6th biggest defence spender in the world already in cash terms. I think he is doing it well, but will he get anywhere? Well, I suppose you give it a go, don't you? But poor Prince or King Charles, as he is now, being prostituted. He's going to have to put up the Donald in Windsor Castle at some point. But
But he's already, I feel sorry for the Kings. He's already got to go. He's going to the States anyway to mark the 250th anniversary of whatever they got their freedom, whatever we were calling it.
The start of the War of Independence in some.
I suspect that in a very short period of time, there's going to be people begging to come back, right? Just because there's some sanity on this side of the pond. But he's got to go over there anyway for the 250th anniversary. There's a couple of other things that are kind of in the diary that are Trump related. He's got to go to various summits and stuff like that. To have him back over for a state visit as well, I mean, it's just like it's nothing but Trump for a year. Nobody. That's asking a lot of anyone to put up with, especially a cancer patient, for goodness sake. It's a bit much. But do you think that that's going to keep Trump sweet? Is that the price we're going to have to pay?
Yeah, well, in one way, when he went out himself, Starmer, that was his Trump card. And it bought him a much more favourable reception. It helped him avoid the kicking that Zelensky got. But once you've played it. That's it. You've shown your hand. And it can't be withdrawn. It can be kicked into the long grass. It can be forever pushed back. You can scale it down. For instance, when Trump read out the letter from Charlie, he mentioned Windsor. Well, I suspect you take him to Windsor because there's a big fortress. You can lock him in. It's harder to protest. If you wanted to put him in a horse-drawn open carriage up the Mall, you'd have all sorts of problems. One, security, and two, just hearing people howl. And there's this question, it keeps coming back, whether or not he's going to be offered the privilege of addressing both houses of Parliament. Obama did, Zelensky has. Do you let a coup leader, somebody who tried to incite a coup against his own Parliament, Congress 4 years ago, address MPs and peers? Well, they've had some bad ones over the years, so maybe they'll get another one. But again, I'm not sure you could corral MPs and peers now into giving them a respectful hearing, so you'd then risk walkouts and protests inside it. He's playing with fire, the Prime Minister, but I think he's almost as like he's got a long-term goal. He's not quite sure how he's going to get there, but he just thinks, let's keep the show on the road each time, try and keep it on the show on the road. Because we wake up in Britain and you think, what madness are we going to hear now from Trump and Vance?
Yeah.
I suppose the latest you wake up is a quite frankly deranged attack on Hamas. No time for Hamas, pogrom, absolutely violent, barbarous, that hostages should be released. But talking about the future, and typing it and a lot of it in capitals, saying you can have a beautiful future, but if you're holding hostages, you're dead. And of course, we know he wants Gaza to be Trump Gaza, and he was circulating that video of giant statues himself. I mean, we're kind of dealing with a nutter in the Oval Office. It's very, very, very difficult.
Yeah, that's a hell of a place that we seem to have got to. Steve says you should give Trump a cardboard box. It works well with most toddlers. I think most parents and most anyone who's had to deal with someone else who deals with toddlers would just say we don't give in to a bully. And that looks like where we are going to have to be. Now, it was interesting, Kev, or Leanne says, Starmer says we're doing this because we're broke. Well, we're not completely broke. We're probably going to be quite shortly. We'll get on to that next, Leanne. But what's interesting, Kev, that you raised there the issue of maybe Trump addressing both houses of Parliament if he did come over here. And now I want to take us very quickly to the other side of the pond. When you get a new president in the US, they kind of give like a joint speech to both houses of Congress. A bit like the King's Speech here, opening Parliament, saying, this is what I'm going to do. This is the plan, right? Now, they usually get walked in by a committee of sort of both sides, and everyone listens quietly and respectfully. This time, that did not go to plan. Here is a short video of just one of the terrible things that happened.
Members are directed to uphold and maintain decorum in the House and to cease any further disruptions. That's your warning. The chair now directs the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order. Remove this gentleman from the chamber.
Now, that was a Democrat called Al Green who had been heckling Trump throughout his speech, along with many others, complaining about Medicaid, complaining about cuts, complaining about God knows what kind of illegal stuff that Trump's been up to, and who actually got ejected from the chamber. Now, can you imagine anything like that happening in the middle of the King's speech to Parliament here? Would be just, it's unthinkable. It was more like something you see in the Serbian Parliament, which I think this week had smoke bombs going off on the chamber floor, and people were getting cross. This is Kev, the question has to be asked, how the hell do you get this guy and this guy's country, who are all in free fall at the moment, no matter what side you're on, to actually agree to behave nicely for the sake of the rest of the world? They can't even do it for themselves. Why would they do it for us?
Yeah. And what about the free speech of that congressman they had kicked out? I thought they were absolute free speech.
The president has more free speech than everyone else, don't you know?
Yeah,
that?
Elon Musk. Just don't try and raise issues like abortion or the rights of gay teenagers and other gay people. I think you'll find you have no free speech then with these horrible, hard right bigots and hypocrites. Like, America is going to be divided in a bad place for some time. My only hope is people just wake up to the damage that Trump is doing. Maybe it's not over Ukraine. Maybe it'll be on the economy as he imposes tariffs on the likes of the neighbors, primarily Canada and Mexico. He negotiated the trade deals. He doesn't abide by the trade deals, but they will hurt the USA. They will hurt the people who voted for him, those whose cost of living standards, he said, was one of his main goals, has to be improved. So I'm just hoping he's such a bundle of absurdities that he will somehow expose himself. He was a bit of a laughing stock in the first 4 years, the first term. He's better organized now with quite really hard right ideologues around him, hitching their wagons to his horse and then trying to whip him into
but it's a runaway horse, Kev. It's a horse that's out of the stable and is bucking all over God knows where and putting a hoof through the window of the car and everything else. I mean, two of the other things that happened in this speech. First off, you're supposed to lay out your policies for the next few years. He doesn't have any, really. So he just did campaign speeches. He did stuff he said on the stump to get elected about how great everything is going to be. And that was kind of it. So he hasn't actually, there's a lot of emptiness inside all that ideology. And then, he was just sort of, he had a go at the Democrats for not applauding him. He's more worried about his ego and how it looks and how it sounds and actually doing stuff.
Yeah, look, I mean, he has a Buckingham Bolton horse. A Buckingham Bolton horse can do a lot of damage to those around it as well as to itself. But you pick up somewhere. He complains he didn't get applauded because he's just he's so thin-skinned. Butterfly wings are thicker than his skin, and he's easily bruised. But it's where flattery, which is what Starmer and Macron are using, and now Zelensky has had to deploy and basically go on bended knee and praise him as strong leadership. They may get somewhere. They may, and that's why they don't give up. I mean, it kind of you watch it, and it's a horror show, and it's serious when there's lives at risk in Ukraine and the living standards of people elsewhere. And this bloke is a nutter. People, apologists, I think, demean themselves too when they say, "Oh, it's all about the art of the deal and getting it." He wasn't a particularly great business person. He inherited a company from his dad and made more money, but he had big debts. But it is all about him. You're right. He's a narcissist, and it's very, very difficult to deal with somebody like him. But I think Starmer is right too. I disagree with the rise in defence spending and the slashing of aid. I think they're wrong, but he is right. He is right to keep trying to talk to him and somehow bring him round in whatever way, or rub off the roughest edges, because the alternative is worse.
Yeah, it goes right then, doesn't it? Now, on to the main story of the day then. Yesterday, two important things happened, which you may not have noticed, might pass you by. The first is that the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, sent her budget plans to the Office of Budget Responsibility so they could check her site. And the second is that the French President, Emmanuel Macron, gave a speech to the nation in which he said they were going to have to spend less on the things they liked, like welfare, and more on arms and weapons. Kev, is that the rumour of what's happening to our budget too?
Yeah, 26th of March, he makes a big financial statement, and the books are reopened, and she's already saying that the world's changed since her last budget, and I think that is to try and soften us up for some cuts in areas such as benefits, welfare, social solidarity, whatever you want to call it, in order to fund higher defence spending, and it's feeling pretty grim. It's why some Labour MPs say now that the government can kind of say the world's changed because of Trump. Once ally becoming a hostile leader, so therefore all bets are off. And whatever you said in the manifesto, well, you can say because of war, fighting, defence, whatever you want to call it again. You can do what you like, but it's always easy to say let's slash welfare spending. But we saw in the Tory years, including during the Condemned Coalition, the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats, there were real victims here. If you remember the bedroom tax, lots of cuts for children. Yes, there has been a spike in people who are claiming benefits because they're out of work and saying they're sick. Well, if that's the case, don't change the amounts you pay, but try and get them back to work. Address why they are ill. Get them assessed, and if you find it's physical or mental health, then try and get them better.
Yeah, and it's one of those things because it becomes a knock-on effect, doesn't it? Because if you can't get, if you're on a waiting list for something that is getting longer and longer and longer because of the cutbacks to the NHS, then you're not getting so much treatment, so your condition's getting worse. So you're less likely to be able to work. So you're more likely to be on these benefits. And then when someone comes along and says, why aren't you at work? And the answer is, well, I've been waiting 18 months for a mental health referral, or to have this cancer cut out, or to this, or to that, or to the other. Or my things have just got worse because I've just been waiting. So the answer to get people back to work is actually to spend more money on health and benefits and stuff sometimes. So it's a horrible, vicious circle, isn't it?
Yeah, and the government is spending a lot more. It's about to spend a lot more on health, on the NHS, in fairness to it. But there's always a smack in this of divide and rule politics, which I find very unpleasant. And you try and divide the working against the non-working, the fit and healthy against the unfit and unhealthy, the disabled against the non-disabled. We've always seen battles. Certainly, Robert Jenrick, the Tory Shadow Justice Secretary, is playing a card again on the question of race, claiming sentencing guidelines are discriminatory against white people. And the whole point of the new guidance is the criminal justice system is discriminatory against people of colour who are black or British Asians, because they're more likely to be sentenced to jail for committing the same crimes as white people. But they twist it round, and there's I just worry with Reeves here, and always let's go for the welfare budget. Let's always go that there's a kind of a bit of a whiff of something unpleasant in the air.
Yeah. Now, Chris says this benefits slashing talk is to appeal to voters who think anyone claiming benefits is work shy. It brings up that awful phrase, working families, like no one else matters. If you're not working, therefore you're unimportant. You could, of course, be a carer for someone and saving the state huge amounts of money. Leanne says it's just all about money. I can't even get to a dentist, and neither can my disabled children. This is the thing. If you don't have good dental care, that just progresses to so many other illnesses that then you do become, this kind of problem that they're now going, oh gosh, how do we fix this? You make dentists available is how you fix it. So what's going to be cut? The former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak was telling the BBC yesterday that welfare was the obvious thing to cut. Most people don't know we spend more on that than we do on defence at the moment. It's the biggest, fattest bit of the budget spend to slash, isn't it, Kev? So it's also where the weakest people rely on something the most.
Yeah,
and the Labour Party really prides itself on creating, and the sort of post-war settlement. How's Rachel going to get this past the British public or past her own party?
Yeah, and Foxy, the biggest component of spending in the welfare budget is state pensions, which people pay in 40, 45 years to get. And if you look at kids in poverty who live in poverty, around half of them in households where somebody works, and low pay is a huge problem. Even the minimum wage going up, you'd find it very difficult to live on, and you'd get universal credit, and you'd qualify for housing benefit and top-ups because pay is low. Now, I've not really seen a plan. I've seen Liz Kendall, the Work and Pension Secretary, try and occasionally change the music to say they're different to the Tories, but actually, what will you do? What will you withdraw? That's it. You've got to get real people and say, right, what will they lose? And then you've got to examine it that way, because you can talk about big figures, the big figure, an extra 3 billion off. No one really you can't quite see what 3 billion is, because it's such a large sum. If you say somebody's going to lose 20, 50 quid a week, or their whole entitlement, they're going to be judged to be fit for work, and then you just say, right, that's it, you're off. Then you can understand that, but you need that granular detail.
Exactly.
To judge it.
Yeah. What do you think, everybody? Where would you, let's not have the kind of, we just need more money or we need to do less of this kind of thing. Let's have some specifics. Where would you, if you were Keir Starmer or Rachel Reeves, where would you cut? Are you going to freeze the state pension and go, do you know what, it's just going to have to stay what it is? Are you going to reduce it? People don't want to take money away from children who are living in poverty. People don't want to take money away from pensioners. People don't want to take money away from people who are genuinely ill. So then people start saying, oh, people who are on the take, people who are committing fraud. Well, there's not very many of them. There's more mistakes in the system than there is fraud. So how are we going to raise the money that is necessary to defend ourselves and to defend our neighbours? You've got this, you could argue, I suppose, Kev, that increasing defence spending sort of increases jobs, and not just in the defence industry, but knock-on ancillary jobs as well. But unless people start recruiting people who are sick and disabled and have chronic long-term illnesses in greater numbers, that's not going to pick up the slack. Someone can say, well, you are fit to work, and you sort of wheel or limp yourself down to a job interview.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily going to employ you over someone who's not limping, are they?
No, I mean, that's absolutely right. On defence, it was very noticeable that at the weekend, Starmer talking about missiles, 5,000 missiles going to Ukraine. He was emphasising the number of jobs, 200 going to be created at a tails plant in Northern Ireland, trying to bring. You spend in Ukraine, but you get a benefit here, and you're right. Look, employers want to always want the pick of the crop. That's what they want. And if somebody's got physical or mental health problems, they're going to be down the pecking order for a job.
Yeah, or unless all the healthy lads.
Yeah, it's easier and cheaper to buy to employ somebody who, say, isn't bipolar. I've met bipolar people who can be absolutely outstanding people and absolutely tip top, but then they will have periods where they will go into a much darker place and they can't go to work.
Yeah, there's
if
people
who've got,
rheumatism, rheumatic conditions, stuff that is really bad one day and they can't get out of bed, and there's another day where they can and they can walk without a cane. And
I know. I get it. If particularly if you're a small or a medium-sized business, you need people to turn up and do the job, and you need them to be reliable. And some people can't be because of their physical or mental conditions. So yes, you can try and address that and sort it, but you'd need schemes almost where they have subsidized employment at times. I don't see any sign of that, for instance. So just berating them or taking away their money and making life more miserable for them just feels really callous and cruel.
Yeah, saying go out and work and no one wants to give me a job, and it's a bit difficult, isn't it? So, you know, we've got this situation, I suppose, after the war. We had like 80 years of being looked after by the state because everything, you know, it was the peace dividend, wasn't it? That society could then start looking after its own people. And we have the NHS, the unemployment benefits, social care, all these other things have come along, although not always brilliant, but they do help a lot. And it now sounds like the state is needing us to help look after it to some extent. Steve says he would increase the highest rate of income tax, soak the rich. Kev, would that work? I mean, the argument is that the rich would just get up and go to America.
I'm with him but I'm certainly, my heart is with him, and I'm sure we can get our heads around it, because the rich, really wealthy people enjoy living here. If you want to go and live in Dubai, go and live in Dubai, and it's utterly soulless. So that's what you want, then so be it. But they can't always take their assets with them. So if you have a wealth tax, it's here. So no, I'm sure if you look at taxation, if you're going to increase it, you don't want to increase it on people on low, average, or even middle earnings. You want to on those who are getting higher earnings. I look at the rates of capital gains tax, which are a lot lower than income tax. Never understood that. Never thought that was fair. You could raise capital gains tax. It went up a little bit in the budget, but didn't go up very, very much. Look, there are ways of getting cash quite easy. We have a lot of welfare whereby we subsidize big companies and individuals, and you allow them to avoid tax in so many ways. There's an entire scandal over the trust system, where people can hide their cash in so-called trusts, which, if you've got the money, you can get lawyers to administer them for you. But there just seems a mega multi-billion-pound scam. Do I see any political will in the Treasury or at the top of the government to do any of this? No, I don't actually. No, sadly not.
Well, we'll have to sort of see how it pans out. Even if you started spending money on defence right now, today, tomorrow, it's going to be 5 years before you see any perhaps real changes and coming through, and it's not going to be immediate, because a lot of places where you're going to buy weapons from are going to be America, and they don't want to sell it to you anymore.
Yeah, so, but Foxy, we spend a lot. Look, NATO's 2%. We're 2.3%. I think we're the 6th biggest arms spender in the world now. I don't see why we have to spend more, to be honest. Maybe other NATO members have to spend more. I just don't see why we have to spend more. And the whole point of NATO and being a 32-member club, we take out the USA, if you like, the biggest player in it, undoubtedly, but that leaves 31. The whole point is joint defense, so you never have to fight Russia or anybody else on your own. I think we got a terrible one-sided debate here, where it's just, let's spend more and more and more, but what's it actually going to buy you?
Yeah, isn't that the point of the nuclear deterrent? Once you've got these things, which, by the way, we're renewing, and that's costing about 80 billion every now and again anyway, you don't have to fight any more wars after that, because no one's gonna pick a fight with you. That's the whole point. And with America out of NATO, still got Britain and France got nukes. All you have to do is just say yeah, and just park them in the right place, and Russia has to back down. Yeah. I thought, wasn't that the point of the whole thing?
Yeah, it's a completely flawed system of thinking, which has been found to be bankrupt. And in fact, instead of having an unusable weapon of mass destruction, that would be totally immoral if ever fired. And
something we never want to fire or intend to fire.
Yeah, we'd be better spending money on conventional arms if that indeed needs to increase.
Yeah, well, it's worth noting there's something in Private Eye magazine this week, which I just want to tell viewers about quickly, which is that some of our spending on Ukraine has not been like giving them the whizziest, latest new battle tanks that we have for our own cavalry here. We've been restoring old T-72 Soviet-era tanks, often from other places in Europe that's been stockpiling. We got rid of most of ours a little while ago. We had a couple left in the Tank Museum in Bovington in Dorset, right? Although we haven't sent those, we have used them to make sort of, models for the replacement bits. And we're sending those to go and get the old T-72s elsewhere back on track. So Ukraine is getting 40-year-old tank technology. We're doing it on the cheap. But when we're talking about spending another $6 billion, that's going to be on the really nice, whizzy new bang singing stuff that we want, isn't it?
There is also a little guy like you sort of smile and laugh at that and sort of grimace, but there's a little bit of sense in it because the Ukrainians Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union. It's the technology that they know, so they don't have to be retrained as much. They can keep it going, and they clock it and spot it.
Yeah, and it's very quicker than building a whole new tank. Or sending the very few tanks that we've got over there. So it does make some sense. James says, take the money away from what the government hand out to the royal family. The Crown Estate. The Crown Estate is a whole other argument, Jane. We could sit here and have that for some time. I would argue it's all our money and we don't hand them very much. But I would also point out that there's about 120 million, or at least that was when I did the investigation about 10 years ago, about 120 million that we spend every year on their security. And I think they could probably do their own security because they don't want to spend that much on security. They could stop having quite so many houses. I think Charles has got about 6 at the moment, not all of them. Ours. Anyway, we need to sort of move on a little bit. So I just want to ask quickly, where does all this leave reform? Because Nigel Farage has been blamed for being a Russian stooge. He has tried to put a little bit of clear blue water between him and Trump on various issues. But when you start having to talk about, the government of the day talking about slashing welfare and building up defence, that should play right into that's exactly what reform wants, you would have thought. But he's going to have to say, no, we need peace, don't we, with Putin and Trump, and play by their rules and start giving stuff in and let's annex the Sudetenland and it'll be fine. How's he going to play this, and what's it going to do to the public? Because, if he starts saying, well, we shouldn't be cutting welfare, we shouldn't spend this much on defence because we've got peace offered, people are going to be quite keen on that, aren't they?
Yeah, he's in a difficult position now. It's not going quite the way he would like. He's been too Putin friendly in the past. He was the politician he most admired, he once said, and Trump is no longer his trump card because Trump is unpopular in Britain. So cozying up to him, and you can see he's never been as close to Trump as he pretended. Trump likes to give a little bit of flattery, mention him at the odd speech. I've been told that Farage will ask Trump's people, "Can I be mentioned at a speech?" But you saw not just on Ukraine, but on the Chagos Islands issue. Farage and everyone says, "Oh, Trump's against it," and then he comes out in favor of it. So he's not as close as he likes. But I think both Putin and Trump are problems for Farage now. And then you add to that, if you look at the people who vote reform, they can't all just be dismissed and shouldn't be dismissed as a bunch of racists. Yes, they've got a group who are incredibly racist, but a lot of them have a kind of old Labour agenda. And they want the welfare state to look after them. They want industries to be nationalised. They value the NHS, which Farage every now and again will say perhaps should be replaced by an insurance system where you have to pay a fee just as you do for your car insurance or your household insurance. So I think he's not as strong as he would like to spin. In part, it's been because the Tories have been so weak. And Badenoch would be out of a depth in a teardrop, but it's coming home. He's going to get greater scrutiny. He'll be held to account. And I don't think he likes it because he always just tries to really waffle a bit of bombast, but it can't keep doing that. The stakes are high. This is real now. This is real.
Yeah. And all the people he's been making friends with are suddenly turning out to not be either that useful or indeed that welcome at the table. Now, when we put this broadcast out, I just want to say, it goes out live on Twitter and YouTube and other things at the same time. So we get live comments that come in various different places. And I've just got one here that I think may be very interesting. It's on Twitter and it's from David. And he says, as a millionaire who's living his best life, I was also suffering at a time and know how difficult it is to pay the bills. I'll be giving £20,000 each to assist £10,000 each to assist the first 20 lucky people to message me with the word grace. Rachel Reeves, if you're watching, David on Twitter has a solution for you. Right? Don't cut the welfare state. Just respond to some spam on Twitter, and apparently we'll make loads of money that way. Right. Thanks very much for that, Kev. Now, I have managed to find some good news in the world for you, and here it is. Now, no schoolgirl jokes. Beavers went extinct 400 years ago because of overhunting and habitat destruction. They've been reintroduced in a few places carefully over the past few years, penned in where they could be kept behind fences so they could be kept safe and everything. But it's gone so well. They've done so much to help the local environment and they've stored water. They've boosted other wildlife. The first 2 breeding pairs have been released into the wild in Purbeck in Dorset. Now, Kev, is this proof that even when things go horribly, terribly, badly wrong, it is possible to claw it all back again?
Yeah, beavers, go forth and multiply. Do your stuff. There's a lot. I always like it. You look for something positive, and the truth is that if most people look at their lives, you can see things that you can fret and worry about and think this is getting worse, and you see things that are getting better. And I think regenerating the British countryside, Britain as a country, and restoring the better bits, which I would include beavers, is a great thing. I'll get a bit windy if they say bring back wolves and woolly mammoths. I'm
bang up for wolves though. I think that'd be fine. I'm all right with wolves. Woolly mammoths, I would draw a line at. Because they'd be like urban foxes. They start going through your bins and you'd never get rid of them. Really difficult. But I like the fact that beavers come back. It's a shame that it may take 400 years for things to correct and to become better, but maybe we could do it a little bit quicker next time. Anyway, Thank you, Kev, for all of that. Now, bear in mind that European leaders are meeting in some kind of summit. I think it's today. So there'll be some more news about that later on. And just bear in mind, all this has been going on. Trump has been in office now for 45 days. We've got about 1,000 to go, at least 1,500, I think it is. And we will be having a countdown, I think, on this show. And then, of course, he won't actually go when he's supposed to go. There'll be a civil war, but that's all yet to come. Thank you very much, Kev. Thank you, everyone, for taking part. We will see you again on Monday for another edition of the News Agenda. We're doing a special updating on where we are, the nuclear veterans campaign, Hillsborough Law, and what's happening in Parliament, and to make sure that this government actually pays some attention to the people who provided the nuclear deterrent, which we are now so dependent upon. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you then. Till then, stay safe. Take care. Bye.